reconvene the meeting. I'd like to reconvene the meeting. We called the meeting to order tonight at 5 o'clock to go, and then we recessed and went into executive session, and we'll be reporting that out at a later time. We were in executive session for negotiations and for personnel. So with that, we are reconvened, and roll call. We have Director Claire Wilson, Director Jeffrey McAnalloy, Director Danny Peterson. I'm Carol Gregory. I'm the president of the board, and we have Superintendent Rob New. With that, we will have the presentation of the colors from the Federal Way High School JROTC.
Right.
Please stand.
Arms. Forward. Arch. Color. Alt. Left. East. Reason. Out.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Colors. Right. East. Forward. Arch. Color. Alt. Alt.
Thank you to the Federal Way JROTC and the parents who are here supporting them. Approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of May 13th, 2014 with the addition of Resolution 2014-6 as item number 18 and moving all other items down.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're now moving to the consent agenda. And Jeffrey, Mr. McAnally.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda of May 13th, 2013 as submitted, with one exception that we pull off 4A.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4A. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will now move to 4A. Vince? You want to put the motion first and then
Well, it's just to,
approve 4A?
oh, didn't we, are we not going to approve? I thought, which way do you want to do it?
Oh, we just want to introduce, right?
Introduce,
Right. Okay, we're getting it together. Are we doing the
Introductions.
introductions right now?
Yeah, I
Or-
thought we were going to do it now.
Okay, just, yes, you
Yes,
are.
fantastic.
I'll tell you what we're doing. Traditionally, and I don't know if this is traditional for a long time, but we have put, when we hire new personnel, particularly administrators, they go on the consent agenda, and you never know who they are. So we have asked that they be introduced and you get to know who our new administrators are that we're hiring through the consent agenda.
Fantastic. Well, I'm proud to do that. President Gregory, members of the board, Superintendent New, proud to introduce the two newest administrators hired in the Federal Way School District. And first, I'd like to invite Richard Lasso to the podium so you get a name and a face. As I read his bio, we're excited to welcome Richard as the newest assistant principal of Federal Way High School next year. Richard began his career in education as a history teacher in Tacoma in 2006 and taught for 2 years. Then moved to a position with the College Success Foundation, partnering with the Tacoma schools at Stadium High School. While working with the College Success Foundation, Richard completed his counselor program at St. Martin's University. He was hired as a school counselor in 2010 in Federal Way High School. He has filled various roles as counselor and as a dean of students there. Richard is very versatile in his abilities, savvy in technology, bilingual in English and Spanish, and offers much value to the administration team as a whole at that school. Please help me welcome Richard to the Federal Way Schools family.
Well, I'm both excited and thankful for the opportunity to serve the students and families at Federal Way High School, and I look forward to a great year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. All right. Next, I'd invite Lori Bender to the podium as well. Lori. I'm equally excited to welcome Lori to as assistant principal at Thomas Jefferson High School next year. Lori's bio: she is currently an assistant principal at Port Angeles High School. Lori's educational background includes earning a bachelor's degree in secondary English and language arts from the University of Montana, her master's degree in educational guidance and counseling from City University, and her educational leadership certificate from Seattle Pacific University. Busy. Lori previously worked as a middle school counselor and dean of students at the Eatonville School District and a high school English teacher in the Puyallup School District. She also served as a high school English, journalism, Title I, and Reconnect teacher in the Missoula School District in Montana. We are excited to bring Lori's talent to Thomas Jefferson. She offers experience in working with diverse populations, special education, at-risk students, and PBIS. Please help me welcome Lori Bender to the Federal Way Schools District's family. Lori.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to both of you.
So, Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda 4A of May 13th, 2014 as was submitted.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will now move to student, staff, and community recognition. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Gregory, members of the board, Superintendent New. At this time, I'd like to introduce, we'll bring him back up, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, Vince Blauser. Vince.
All right, I am thrilled this evening to report that Decatur High School is a recipient of the 2013 Washington Achievement Award. And I'd like at this time to invite David Brower, principal of Decatur, to the podium. Come on up, David. Let me read a little bit about this. Decatur High School has been honored for high progress. Schools qualify for this recognition if they are in the top 10% of schools making the most progress in the performance of all student groups over a 3-year period in reading and math, as measured by the state test. The Washington Achievement Award are sponsored by the Washington State Board of Education and OSPI. They celebrate Washington's top performing schools and recognize achievement in many categories. This is really an extraordinary accomplishment in that is a direct reflection of the hard work of the students at Decatur, the dedication of the Decatur teachers, and the support and guidance of the Decatur parents. Decatur is one of 413 schools that was recognized in 2013 Washington Achievement Award winners. Please help me congratulate David Brower, and the staff and the students and the parents of Decatur High School. David, congratulations. You will continue.
There you go.
I got this. Oh, this is. Oh, my goodness. This one's just equally exciting. I'm honored this evening, folks, to recognize an outstanding group of talented individuals that make up the Decatur Dance Team. Decatur Dance Team. I'm going to have you come up here so the folks in the audience can see your smiling faces, please. Come on up. Yeah. All right, this team is currently made up of 25 members, and this group has had a significant history of major accomplishments. Let me give you some examples. They've had 5 undefeated competitive seasons. They've won 9 West Central District Championship titles. I'm pausing for effect. They've achieved 4 USA national titles. And tonight we celebrate their 5th WIAA state title as a 2014 3A state military style, right, girl? Champions. Holy cow. That deserves an applause right now, I tell you. Woo! Is your coach here with you tonight? Lindsay, are you here? Come on up too as well, please. Lindsay, Coach Lindsay Starr. Coach Starr was named the WIAA Coach of the Year for not only 3A, but 4A as well. So congratulations to you folks, to you as the coach, and to the Decatur dance team. Congratulations, ladies.
That's mine. Yeah. Next, I'd like to introduce Director of Career and Technical Education, Nancy Hawkins. Nancy?
So every year at this time, we come before you to recognize the CTSO state champions. And if you've left your handy-dandy acronym dictionary at home, I will remind you that CTSO stands for Career and Technical Student Organizations. So those organizations such as DECA, FBLA, FFA, Skills USA, HOSA is the newest one, Health Occupation Students of America, TSA, and FCCLA. Okay, I got them all. So first off, I'd like to invite up Michael Demchuk, Jake Knapp, and Brenda Salinas from Thomas Jefferson. Will you come up here, please? And their instructor is Tom Decker. Tom, will you come up here, please? For the second year in a row, TJ took home the gold medal for the Skills USA Crime Scene Investigation Competition. The contest was held at the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab in Tacoma, and the competitors were thrown a huge twist in that they had to process a vehicle as their crime scene, complete with a real 45 caliber handgun. While processing the crime scene, they had to properly identify, document, measure, photograph, and collect the evidence. In addition, they had to demonstrate the proper methods of fingerprint identification, dusting of the fingerprints, and lifting a usable print. Finally, they had to do a formal report, preparation, and presentation of their work for the judges. Doing all this under the scrutiny of commissioned officers and detectives is nerve-wracking, but our competitors were solid under pressure. This is a remarkable group of students. And if you folks will wait over at the side, we want to get a big group picture of all the CTSO folks at the end. Next, we have the American Sign Language Sign-Off State Champion, Manu Fafita from Federal Way High School, and his instructor, Susan Hundrup. Will you come up, please? Is he here? He's not here. Well, I'll tell you about him anyway. Manu won first place for his ABC story at the recent American Sign Language Sign-Off competition at Tahoma High School. An ABC story is told using only the manual alphabet hand shapes of A, B, C, D, and so on. No other hand signs or shapes are allowed, and the signer must follow the correct ABC order. This is quite a challenging form of ASL poetry. Manu is a first-year ASL student and a junior at Federal Way High School. Many of the deaf judges at the competition commented very favorably about Manu's performance. During the time he was at the competition, he maintained a voice-off and use of ASL-only mode of communication, even though he's not a deaf person. Is that right? This is a way of showing respect for the deaf community. So we want to congratulate Manu, even though he's not here tonight. Thank you so much. Next is Marina Marchant, First Aid and CPR champion in Skills USA from TJ, and her instructor, Monica Wachi. Can you come up here, please? Marina is a junior IB student who wishes to pursue a medical career in the hopes of one day making a difference in the quality of people's lives after injury or illness. She was selected to the student rescue team at TJ after finishing third place at the Skills USA regional competition. Through perseverance and dedication to studying, Marina was able to master the first aid and CPR skills, leading TJ to their fourth consecutive Skills USA state championship. The team completed 5 stations of competition, including a written exam of various scenarios, adult CPR, infant CPR, a live patient experiencing heat stroke with splinting, and a patient suffering a serious arm wound with splinting. The TJ members also took 2nd, 3rd, and 4th places in their event. That's what we call a sweep. The competition was as strong as it has ever been over the past years, making the sweep of awards much more of an accomplishment. You are in great hands if you should become ill or injured on the TJ campus. Congratulations. Next, we have Ben Lemaster from Decatur High School in the automotive service event from Skills USA. And I don't think I see Luke Thompson in the audience. David Brower, would you come up and stand with him, please? Is Luke here? I don't see him. Luke Thompson is his instructor. Ben has been a dedicated automotive technology student for the past 3 years. He participated in an AYES student internship program last summer by working at a local Jiffy Lube. And for those of you who don't know, AYES provides paid internships in the summer for these students. So not only do they get the experience, but they actually get a nice paycheck. After taking 2nd place in the automotive maintenance contest last year, Ben set his goal this year on the automotive service contest. His hard work and dedication paid off, and he will be competing against all 49 states in Kansas City this June for the Automotive Service National Championship. After graduation, Ben plans to attend Boise State in Idaho to study engineering and is planning to be also a walk-on football player. So congratulations, Ben. Next, we have the winner of the photography contest in Skills USA, Delaney Brown from Federal Way High School. Is Delaney here? Delaney, come on up. Is Miss Moran here? Is Chad Luttrell still here? Chad, come on up. Delaney Brown is a very hardworking photographer who chose her path early on in her high school career. She has won many awards along the way for her accomplishments. Her event requirements included a studio shoot, a field assignment, a Photoshop fix, and a written test all in one day. She received special kudos in Skills USA for her high-level Photoshop skills. In the fall, Delaney will attend Seattle Central Community College for their photography program, one of the premier programs of this type in the nation. So congratulations, Delaney. Last but certainly not least, we have Morgan Verez, I hope I'm saying that right, from Decatur High School in the Skills USA Creed event, and her instructor, Paul Jornstad. Morgan is a sophomore who keeps active with extracurricular sports and Skills USA Photography Club at Decatur. In her first year of competition, she chose to compete in the Creed competition, in which she recited the Creed and explained its meaning to Skills USA. At the state competition, Morgan finished in first place. The experience she is most thankful for was the opportunity to meet new people. She thanks Skills USA for giving her the chance to be a part of this great experience. Congratulations, Morgan. And we'd like to have a picture of the big group, if you would all come back forward up here and bunch up together and smile pretty. That'd be great.
You want to go out there?
No.
Just thought I'd ask. Thank you. Well done. Are you kidding me? I need the Photoshop.
Yeah, right.
And finally this evening, I'd like to introduce my longtime colleague, Rod Leland. Rod?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, and I'd like to introduce a team of people who accomplished a challenging project successfully. And tonight, as you walked in, if you paid attention to the table on the way in, there's a big gold disc. And they're going to explain what that is. So I'd like to, oh, there you go. Thank you, Sally. I'd like to introduce Greg Hepp, who's principal architect with Bassetti Architects, who did the design for the center. He's going to introduce Christian, who's with him. I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeff Green, who's the principal with Green Gasaway Architects. They are the project managers. And he's going to introduce Jesse. And I'd also like to acknowledge, when I say team, it was truly a team effort. We have one representative of a big number of people, at least 10 people at the city helped us. But tonight, Marty Gillis is here, and she is the building official for the city. So we share this award, and we have a very brief presentation for you. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Rod, for that introduction. I'm Greg Hepp. This is Christian Kaczynski from Bassetti Architects. And at the beginning of this project, the team set a number of goals, and the team really worked together to achieve these goals. Rod Leland from Capital Projects, Cindy Wenland from Transportation, Sid White from Maintenance, and Mary Asplund at Food Service, along with Green Gasaway, Jesse and Jeff, who were just introduced, really supported and helped our team to achieve these goals, and in particular, the sustainability goal that we're talking about tonight.
So the measurement tool that the team chose to use for how to measure the success of sustainability on the Service Center was a certification called LEED, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environment Design, Environmental Design, which looks at 5 areas of the building design. There's site planning is one category, water management, energy, material use, and indoor environmental quality. And then there's a point system by which the projects are ranked on that.
And this LEED Gold certification is concrete, whoa, back up. Sorry. It's really concrete evidence of the district's achievements.
You're on that right click.
With technology. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We're back on track. It is really a concrete demonstration of the district's commitment to stewardship and reducing operating costs. So we earned points, 63 potential points, 60 are required for gold, so we actually did a little bit more than LEED Gold. We earned 4 out of the 4 possible points for water efficient landscaping, and the city worked with us to approve what's called low impact development. And you can see here in front of the building, these gardens are actually used to filter rainwater that comes off the street and polluted areas of the parking lot, and then transfer that or percolate that water back down into groundwater, reducing costs to the district in terms of stormwater treatment and stormwater detention.
One of the other areas where we saved water on this project was we looked at the automatic bus wash, which washes about 150 to 180 school buses every week at least. And this represented a significant amount of water use at the building, as over half of the overall water use of the building. So what we did is install a system that collects the rainwater off of the roof of the building and stores it in a series of cisterns, and then uses that rainwater to wash the buses. So we've reduced the water usage of the building by over 300,000 gallons per year.
9 of the 63 points that we achieved were in the area of reducing energy use. We reduced energy use 30% over the base building projection. And we did that through a number of strategies, including using daylighting instead of electric light. You could see the skylights up here and windows that bring in the daylight into the work areas. Our heat is applied along the windows where we have heat loss. And then for cooling, first we have ventilation fans that move the air around so that we don't have to turn the cooling on quite so soon. And then when we do need cooling, we have spot cooling provided by these condenser units in the building to help us save that energy.
We also earned a number of points for the materials that we used in the building. We diverted about 98% of the construction waste from the project. We diverted that from the landfill and treated that at recycling facilities. Over 30% of the material used in the building is recycled content, and 30% of the material used in the building was sourced within 500 miles of the project site. So there was a real emphasis on local and regional materials used in the building, as well as recycled content materials. Also, over half the wood used in the building comes from sustainable forestry practices, so we earned an extra point for using certified wood on the project.
Other materials points were for using non-toxic materials, which help the indoor environment. Also helping the indoor environmental quality is that over 90% of the spaces in the building are daylit and provide views to the outside, so the workers have those benefits. The thermal comfort in the building is maintained by a radiant floor system, and all in all, it's a very healthy and clean interior environment.
So in addition to the non-toxic materials that we use in the building, we also provided mechanical and ventilation system in the building that provides for optimum indoor air quality. So we have a high degree of filtration that we've used on the system. We also use heat recovery units in the building, which allow us to actually flush the building with 100% fresh air from the outside. So all of the dust and other potential contaminants from the workshop spaces, such as in this photograph, are flushed outside the building and are not recirculated. And then we've also provided exceptional natural comfort in these spaces through the use of radiant floors and natural ventilation.
The white-colored floors are used in both this area and in the transportation area, so that for two reasons. One is to increase the light and the use of natural light, but also so that objects on the floor can be easily seen against that light-colored floor and increase the safety of the building. So in addition to fostering greater cooperation between the departments that share this building, we also had wonderful cooperation from the City of Federal Way. They partnered with us in permitting the industrial scale water recycling, which is, I believe, the largest in Federal Way, and also in the low impact development to reduce the stormwater impacts. And they've gone even further than that. Now the city has entered a joint fueling agreement with the Federal Way schools, strengthening the relationship between the two entities. So if you haven't been to see this facility or been inside it, I urge you to go visit it and enjoy the facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
That's it for recognitions tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Arts Education Month. I have Claire down.
Yeah, May is Arts Education Month, and so on behalf of the arts, I'd like to read a resolution and ask the board to support the resolution, which is a resolution to the Board of Education of the Federal Way School District to support the arts and declare May 2014 as Arts Education Month. Whereas the arts, including dance, music, theater, and visual arts, are defined as a core subject in Washington State's definition of basic education and considered an essential component of the complete and balanced education for all students. And whereas imagination and creativity are increasingly understood as critical capacities needed for success in the 21st century workforce, and whereas the arts can transform our schools into havens of creativity and exploration, places where students want to learn, teachers want to teach, and all members of the learning community are more engaged and motivated. And whereas high-quality school-based arts education involves a wide range of partners, including school boards, district administrators, educators, parents, artists and art organizations, community members, and local businesses and organizations whose collective endeavors towards equitable provision of arts learning for all students we celebrate and promote. And whereas we applaud the efforts and dedication of arts educators and advocates around the state, and we call for school and community leaders to continue to broaden and to strengthen their commitment to provide arts education for every student in every school. For resolution, now therefore be it resolved that the Federal Way Public Schools Board of Education do hereby proclaim May 2014 as Arts Education Month, dated this 13th day of May 2014.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Claire?
No, I just want to say that all students learn differently, and the arts is one of those magic ways that oftentimes are considered another way of learning instead of a way to learn. And we need to think about how we continue to infuse and integrate the arts into all of our education and into our academic content areas so that we provide opportunities for kids with different learning styles and ways of learning and thinking to continue to be successful. So I appreciate the support.
Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And now I believe I am to introduce Mr. Kazar.
Your mic is off. Mic is off.
Oh, now I'm introducing Mr. Kazar. And Randy, I don't know what title you're under tonight. You can make it up as you go.
Oh, I will. I'd like to have all the students that came this evening that are going to be visiting Ghana and Ecuador come and assemble behind me, along with parents. Superintendent New, President Gregory, distinguished board members, fellow community, my name is Randy Kazar, and I currently serve as a District Director for Global Initiatives.
Good.
I have been amazed to watch our community change in so many cool ways in the last 40 years when I first began teaching 4th grade at Lakeland Elementary School in 1975. The focus on global initiatives is not new. Over 20 years ago, Thomas Jefferson High School initiated the baccalaureate program. The Cambridge program was born 8 years ago at Federal Way High School, followed by the pre-ACE Cambridge program at Lakota and Sacagawea Middle School. And in 2010, the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program was launched at Kylo and Totem. It will soon be at both Illahee and Sequoia Middle Schools. All of these programs focus on a global perspective. We're also looking at ways to expand our foreign language opportunities at both the middle and elementary levels. In 2012, the Federal Way School District kicked off a partnership with Free the Children and their commitment to local and global issues. Every one of our middle and high schools have a We Act team comprised of student ambassadors that have been instrumental in raising several thousand pounds of food for area food banks on Halloween night in an annual event called We Scare Hunger. In addition to each school's We Act teams, they make global connections with other countries, other developing nations such as Kenya, Ghana, and Ecuador. Nearly 2,000 students from Federal Way have earned their way to We Day in Seattle over the past 2 years. An outgrowth of Free the Children is an opportunity called Me to We. This past fall, the school board approved 11 students from our 4 comprehensive high schools, Taft Academy, Truman, and Federal Way Public Academy to visit Ghana and Ecuador through Me to We to reach out beyond our local community to see developing nations through a different lens. All of these students completed a comprehensive application process and were chosen by a committee from each of their schools. I would like to introduce Chris Vargas and Hannah Thorson from Thomas Jefferson High School to come forward and share their thoughts about their upcoming visits to Ghana and Ecuador and officially thank the school board. Hannah and Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Kazar. Hi, I'm Chris Vargas from Thomas Jefferson High School, and I'm visiting Ecuador this summer.
And I'm Hannah, and I'll be going to Ghana.
First off, I just want to thank you guys and thank everyone, Mr. Kazar for updating us constantly. Thank the school board for supporting us in every way to on our trips to Ecuador and Ghana. And I've been waiting for an opportunity like this. It truly is amazing, and I just want to thank you for inspiring me to be inspired and to inspire others. And I've been working with the We Act committee, and we're planning a We Day Federal Way for just Federal Way. So I think that this trip would be a perfect story to tell those people to try to carry on this tradition and try to help them be inspired to make a change just like I'm trying to do.
Yes, we are so very appreciative for this opportunity. As I said, I'll be going to Ghana, and we just want you to know we are so excited about this, and we are so ready to bring this back to our local community and try and implement it wherever we can. I'm actually in the diploma program at TJ, the IB diploma program, and one of the aspects of this program is an extended essay, which we can choose on any one of our junior year classes, one of which my junior year classes is anthropology, the study of other cultures. And so for my essay topic, I'm doing an anthropology one, and I've decided to do Western modernity and globalization in Western African cultures. So I'm very excited to learn about them even further through this trip and be able to bring that back home and study it further. Thank you all so much for this amazing opportunity.
When do you go?
Early August for Ghana and mid to late August for Ecuador.
And how long are you there?
About 10 days.
Great, great. Well, have a great trip. It's going to be a great learning experience.
So proud to have you represent Federal Way School District, each and every single one of you. And, you know, there are a lot of people in this world that never get that opportunity to travel. And so to be able to bring back your stories and to bring back what you learn and share and give people hope and vision, just like you're talking about, is just incredible. So have a wonderful, safe trip, and you know, let your parents know you're going to make good choices, and we'll make sure you're safe too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to also acknowledge the other students that will be visiting Ghana and Ecuador, and also their parents who have been very supportive, and so I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We look forward to your report when you return. Okay, now a report on the National Board and CTE update. Ron Podmore.
Good evening, President Gregory, members of the board. I wanted to just spend a couple seconds before Ron spoke to introduce him to you and share with you some of the wonderful work that he's doing for not only the teachers in Federal Way, but all over the nation. Mr. Podmore is a 22-year veteran of Federal Way Public Schools, and he is a CTE teacher at Decatur High School. It's the night for celebrating CTE. He was selected as one of 12 teachers out of 400 applicants to participate in the revision process for the National Board CTE certification. He represents the states of Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, the Dakotas, and Hawaii. Mr. Podmore is the first deaf person to achieve National Board certification using American Sign Language as his certifying body. Tonight, Ron will share with us some more information about this revision process and how he's serving in that capacity.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you taking the time out to get a little bit of insights in regards to what's going on at the national level as it pertains to policies. I would also like to extend a quick thanks to Marie Bearhart and Sean Simpson, as well as Francine Oishi. These three ladies, I appreciated having the dialogues, the conversations with them in regards to the work that I was doing on behalf of the National Board Foundation of Washington, D.C. As you can see from up here, the revisions to the National Board certification process is exactly that. It's revisions, and it pertains to career and technical educators. I was very honored to enjoy taking some opportunities to work with my colleagues on a national level, and each month, if it was the first Monday of the month, I knew that I'd be walking through SeaTac Airport at 5 o'clock in the morning, boarding that 7:30 flight to Washington, D.C., and really get an opportunity to do some cerebral work, per se. The National Boards Foundation was born out of the 1983 book that came out, some of you may recall, called A Nation at Risk. And it was done under the auspices of former President Ronald Reagan. 4 years later, as a result of that, the National Boards Foundation was established with the idea of a national curriculum that would address student learning as well as teacher credentialization. From 1987 to up until about 2003, the National Board continued to add on certification programs, starting off with math, English, the sciences, expanding to history, the arts, world languages, and eventually CTE education. In 2003, revision started going forward with the idea of looking towards what is it exactly that we need to have in regards to preparing our students, to preparing our teachers for success as we move into the depths of the 21st century. National Boards has 25 different certifying bodies. Out of that, one of those is the Career and Technical Educators, which I participated with my colleagues. The idea behind the revision process was to remove barriers. I worked with the National Board certified teachers and other experts in the profession to remove these barriers in a process that have absolutely nothing to do with whether or not a teacher is accomplished in their field. With this, we addressed current trends. We worked fully to deconstruct the old 300-page booklet that created the idea of what it is that teachers need to know and to be able to demonstrate their competency as well as their accomplishments. They had to understand that they needed to know explicitly and implicitly what exactly are their students' background. What is it they need to do in order to have their students be successful? They also needed to know data, reflect on their practice, and reflect on their participating in the learning community in which they live. And also to bring up to the standards. CTE standards for National Board's professional teaching standards have never been revised since their original inception in 1996. And it was interesting for me to meet colleagues from all over the country. Renewable energy technology teachers from Vermont, wind turbine teachers, to meet the biometrics teacher in technology, eye scan, fingerprinting, to meet a TSA, Transportation Security Administration teacher. Think, the individuals, if you ever have an opportunity to go to the airport and be screened, these individuals that are teaching, these teachers that are teaching these students career opportunities. It was absolutely an amazing experience for me. So those are some of the things that I had an opportunity to have to engage in this discourse, engage in these conversations, to create true mechanisms that allow teachers the opportunity to create pathways for student success when it comes to jobs. So what is changing? Flexibility. In regards to the National Board certification process, there is a flexibility. While teachers can complete the entire certification process in 1 year once it is fully implemented, some may choose to do so over several years if that fits better with other demands on a teacher's time. The affordability was also a factor for many teachers. When I took it several years ago, it was almost $2,300. Today, that price has been dropped down to about $1,900, with each of the 4 components costing just under $500. Candidates will now have the option to pay for it and submit electronically, all components separately. And with that, there are 2 important price points. One is that there are 4 different categories that teachers must go through in order to secure that they understand accomplished teaching. Of those 4 categories, each of those categories is roughly $475 with a $75 non-refundable cycle enrollment fee. As you can see up here, it says no longer will a CTE teacher need to be in possession of a 4-year degree. This was one that was a sticking point that many of my colleagues, we argued for the better part of a year. Unlike Congress, we actually came to resolution. And it was interesting, only for CTE. All right, now the thinking behind that is sometimes there are individuals that are out there in the vocational industry. The auto shop teacher, okay? We recognize that we do solicit, we seek out, we receive individuals from the private industry. And not always do they have a 4-year degree, but their expertise, their wealth is deep, it's meaning, it's resourceful, and it's rich. Each individual state has their own requirements for that individual. Washington State does not require a CTE teacher to have a 4-year degree, provided they have the experience in that. With that, the National Boards Foundation, we came to an agreement that if that CTE teacher has at least 3 years experience, they no longer need to have a 4-year degree, and it is only for the CTE teachers. All right, for all other individuals, if it's a math teacher, English teacher, science, and so forth, they still need to be in possession of a 4-year degree. With that, many states recognize their teacher contributions of their prior career endeavors, much as I shared. Each state may continue with their own eligibility requirements. Ideally, more CTE teachers will attempt the National Board Professional Teacher Certification after at least 3 years of successful teaching. In my conversations with President Ron Thorpe of the National Board Foundation, his goal is every single teacher National Board certified. I think it's an amazing goal to have. as the pendulum, as the movement towards a national curriculum gained speed, the idea is that their teachers out there would be able to demonstrate proficiency in accomplished teaching. What's not changing? The National Board standards are still very much in existence. There are 5 core propositions. Teachers need to demonstrate their commitment to teaching. They need to know their subjects. They need to have management and monitoring of data of student learning. They need to be reflecting the practice of teaching, and again, they need to demonstrate what is their commitment to the community in which they live in. What else is not changing? It is still very much a performance-based peer review model and assessment, which includes samples of teachers being videotaped in their teaching. It also includes the traditional high-stakes assessment, in which they must sit down and answer questions in regards to their teaching. Content knowledge, commitment to student learning. Rigorous opportunities to demonstrate and master the materials based on the standards is the highlights of what National Boards is all about. So, as we move forward, what does this mean for the 2014-2015 for candidates who are interested in pursuing National Board certification? It's kind of an interesting process. The revised certification will be rolled out, and this is only for CTE. So teachers who are CTE will not be able to participate in it for next year. That's part of the work that I'm doing. It needs to be finalized. The Board of Directors for National Boards needs to be able to digest the work that we've done, have conversations with those that will be presenting, and then that would be printed up and presented to those who would like to do it. So for at least 1 year, for the 2014-2015 school year, it's going to be on a limited basis. So they can take portions of it, but not go through the entire process in 1 year. For individuals who are already CTE National Board certified, the renewals will continue under the old system for a few more years before the renewal certification process itself is adopted. Here in the Federal Way Public Schools, how does having a National Board professional teacher affect student learning, student success? There is a higher rate of student active engagement. The idea of teachers not always being passive, but also actively engaged in addition to their students' learning, in addition to their students' academic growth, but what exactly is going on with their lives, what would they like to do after they graduate from high school? I think that is instrumental. I think it is extremely important. National Board teachers have there is a higher rate of new teachers to the profession, 8 years of experience, meaning there is a growing group of young cohorts, cadres of teachers brand new to the profession who, in addition to going through something called Pro-Cert program with OSPI and Olympia, are also opting to go through the National Boards process. Very young group of teachers that are coming on board, and this also correlates to the national movement with the Common Core. As you can see, there is a very giant strand. There is a movement towards national curriculum, National Board certified teachers, and that is the movement as it is right now. And finally, with National Board teachers, how does having a National Board teacher affect those of us in the Federal Way schools? Is that there is a higher rate of instructional reflection, which is crucial to improving instructional pedagogy. The idea of teachers being able to reflect on their teaching is very important. I'm always reminded of Bill Gates and the work that he has put forth with the National Boards, and he has granted the National Board Foundation with a $1.5 million grant in order to do the revision process. And it is true. And what he says, it does us no good to shame teachers into improving their instruction. The idea of teachers being able to reflect on their instruction, I think, is probably the crucial piece that helps teachers understand how they can improve and enhance their delivery of instructions to students. Where do we go from here? It's an interesting process for me. My work with the National Boards is not done. I will continue to go to Washington, D.C. periodically and finalize my work with them. It has been an honor. I think what is interesting coming out of this whole process is with the idea of the No Child Left Behind, Title I funding loss per se. If I had to bet on it, I would say when our legislators reconvene next year, there will probably be conversations in regards to the TPEP program, which involves the evaluations of teachers and principals. And I have some idea that there will be some conversations pertaining to how do you include more National Board teachers in that whole process. It has been a wonderful opportunity for me to represent the Federal Way Public Schools in this journey. It has been a career highlight for me, and I'm looking forward to getting back more often into the classroom. And I'm getting kind of tired of my teachers or my students saying to me, "Oh, you're back." Imagine that. With that, I do appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Jeffrey? Oh. Well, we really appreciate the energy that you put into this and the excitement that you have for this rather onerous process. And flying back to DC once a month or whatever you were doing is not an easy process either, having done it. And you know, it's a real honor to have someone from Federal Way working at this level, and we congratulate you for being selected and for your good work.
Thank you for your attention.
Thanks.
You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Okay, College Board, Superintendent New.
Thank you, Madam President. It is always my pleasure and honor to bring to the podium our dear friend from the College Board, Nancy Potter, who has visited with us before. Nancy is here tonight to share an update on our work with the College Board and some of our results. And I just want to say thank you to Nancy for your years of friendship, the support to the Federal Way District, and for choosing us for your internship for your superintendent certification.
Thank you very much. President Gregory, members of the Federal Way School Board, Superintendent New, members of the Federal Way community. I sat here and I listened to story upon story upon story of success, everything from career in tech to buildings that are efficient and friendly. And so I asked to speak today not just as a College Board employee, but also as a doctoral candidate at the University of Washington, because one of the things that we have been studying in my classes is good leadership, and also how do you improve instruction. And what I have seen at Federal Way for the years that I have been able to walk alongside Federal Way is an incredible success story. And I'd like to talk about some of the things that I have seen both as a College Board employee, as well as a citizen, as well as a student. This is our college-bound seniors report. I've shared this sort of information with you before. What this is looking at is the college readiness indicators, the SAT, the PSAT, and Ready Step. And you can see over the past 5 years, the last 4 in particular, incredible growth in all of those things that we know are good for kids, all of those things that we know help connect kids to college success and opportunity. But what is especially exciting about Federal Way is that all means all. That not just those students who come from a privileged background, but kids that usually are underrepresented in college populations, that for, again, all of those college readiness indicators, and especially even the SAT subject tests, which tend to be those tests that students have to take to go to the more elite, to the highly qualified schools, you can see that Federal Way, the college-going population, reflects the demographics of your schools. And it's not just in the College Board reports. We've got decades and decades and decades of all sorts of data, but even in the professional press. And last week I was reading some of our College Board news feeds, and I saw this article in the Bellingham newspaper, and you can see that that's a Federal Way classroom. That's Thomas Jefferson. And so it's not just in those local, but actually in national things as well. So this is the Ed Trust report, which featured Federal Way. And I actually was acquainted with this because one of my colleagues at the University of Washington actually showed the a YouTube presentation which talked about Federal Way and their access to opportunity, a academic acceleration policy that's being copied not only around our state because of the state legislation, but also around our country. But the reason that I wanted to talk to you about today is that for the past 20 years, I've been really enamored with the report that comes out of the PSAT. It's called the Summary of Answers and Skills. And in terms of improving instruction, I have found that that report is instrumental for helping teachers figure out what types of things that they need to focus on in order to help children to learn the types of math, reading, and writing skills that are necessary to be successful, not only in college, but also in life. And so for the past several years, because of the fact that I've seen schools do a phenomenal job of turning around the culture and improving instruction, I've done this little trick where I go on and look at the number of different educators that have actually accessed that information. We can also do it for how many students are using My College Quick Start and that sort of thing. So this year I pulled up the metric and I looked, and there were actually 24,110 different high schools around the world that had this particular report created for them. So I sorted by the number of hits on the Summary of Skills and Answers report, and then I looked at the one that was at the very top of the chart, and I started scrolling down past those huge private international schools, past those big high schools in Texas and Florida and New York, and looking for the first school from one of my 5 states. And I was really thrilled when I got to the 17th highest number of hits on the Summary of Skills and Answers to see Federal Way High School and Taft High School right after it. So it was really exciting for me to see that your educators are doing a wonderful job in terms of using the resources that are available. And so and of course, it's not just the Summary of Skills and Answers report, but as you know, it used to be that the Bellevue School District was the only one. I asked Jay Matthews, this used to be the only district with multiple high schools having every single one of their high schools on his, what is now Washington Post, Newsweek, whatever his list is called. But this year, as last year, Federal Way, every single one of their comprehensive high schools was on that particular list. Today, I was asked by an assistant superintendent to look for how many AP exams were being used by that particular district. So I pulled up that report this morning, and I had to look at, first of all, Washington, and Washington, of the 12 states in the western region, Washington is the second highest, California, of course, being the highest. So I dug under and to look for the schools that were being, for the districts for the number of AP exams. And as you might imagine, I looked for the district that I was looking for. And then just for fun, I looked at Federal Ways. And Federal Way has ordered 3,000 exams, which if you go down the list of districts, it's the 5th biggest number of exams in our state. And of course, Federal Way is not the 5th largest district. The districts that are ahead of Federal Way are districts that have twice the size, twice the student population. So in any metric that I look at, what I see is so much being done for so many students with by so few, with such scarce resources. And last week, and I think this is kind of a nice little segue into the next section, last week I was at the Roadmap Project, their annual report, and project manager Jessica Del Barros got up and spoke about the incredible power that Federal Way, how much we owe to Federal Way in terms of their leadership and their guidance for Race to the Top. And I know in terms of helping them last year create and put together the information for them to to get the Race to the Top grant, that it was the incredible success of Federal Way. Federal Way was the first district in our country to actually sign a contract to do the full college and career readiness pathway. So, as Jessica DeBarro said, we owe a ton to Federal Way. And in conclusion, what I see from the metrics as a College Board employee to the things that I see studying education, I see that we owe a lot to Federal Way. And I want to echo the words of another superintendent in the Roadmap District, who I had the opportunity to speak to last night. And what she said was sort of what is on my heart and in my mind, which is that Federal Way has done an incredible job in terms of connecting all their students. And we both felt that it was a huge loss to this district for Rob New to move on to Oklahoma. So just like we lost the Sonics to Oklahoma, now we're losing an incredible leader. So thank you all for your good work, and thank you, Superintendent New, for your incredible leadership.
Thank you. And thank you. Okay, Race to the Top update. Superintendent New.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the kind words, Nancy, and in your relationship and support of our students and staff in Federal Way. Next up is another friend of our district, and a great segue off of what Nancy was just talking about. And it's she's been leading our work here in Federal Way in the Race to the Top Investment Fund 1 under Teaching and Learning. And I'd like to bring to the podium, actually there's going to be a group of people, but first up I'd like to introduce to you Joanne McKicken. Joanne started off her career in New Zealand as a teacher, and then moved on to principal, and then became what they call in New Zealand a district manager, which I guess would be like a superintendent, overseeing 250 schools. She then was promoted to regional manager, overseeing 450 schools, which was about a quarter of the schools in the country of New Zealand. She then moved on to whole country responsibilities as a manager for the Parents and Family National Management, and also Schools Performance Manager. And again, those were whole country responsibilities. Her last position in New Zealand was in the Ministry of Education as a Student Achievement Function and Redesign of Whole System Professional Learning and Development. And what that means is she redesigned the learning system in New Zealand. She then came to Seattle to visit her sister, met a gentleman, fell in love, got married, left New Zealand, is now located in Bellevue. And so we've had the distinct pleasure of working with Joanne this year. She is the founder and president of the Learner First, Transforming Schools and Education Systems, and she is also working with the Global Implementation Project sponsored by Dr. Michael Fullen. So with that, I'd like to welcome and thank Joanne for being here tonight to kick off the update and Race to the Top Investment Fund 1.
Thank you, Superintendent New. It's my pleasure to be here this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the board this evening and with the community of Federal Way. It's an honour to be here. Thank you for your kind words, and I hope that I can provide some information to you tonight about how we're going with the Race to the Top grant this evening. And the real stars really are the principals, the students and the teachers, and hopefully I'll just give you an overview of how we're going tonight, and they will be able to really provide the information on how it's going. Who is the Learner First and what do we actually bring? Rob's given you a little bit of information about myself, and I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be working with Federal Way. I think just by being here tonight I've been able to hear and see some of the exciting things that are going on right the way across the district. My energy and enthusiasm comes from whole system change, so I'm really interested to see how you work as a board, how you work as a whole district, and I work with looking at the whole system to see how we can really shift practice right the way at the district level all the way through each individual school. What I look at is what's really working for the whole system, what's working at each individual layer of the system, and looking at what do we need to do to really affect change for each individual learner. My experience is at each layer of the system. I've worked with the government, I've worked with the Ministry of Education, I've worked with school leaders, and I've worked at shifting each individual student as a teacher as well. I look at thinking about how do we make all of the different parts of the system work. So if you do one thing, there's going to be an outcome at the other end of it. So if you actually think about adding creativity to the system, what will that do in a curriculum area? So we look at all the different layers and how does that affect change. So we also bring to the whole system, what do we look at assessment? So if we look at a standardised test versus looking at a student work product, how do we actually make a decision about whether a student's being successful or not, and how do we decide that, and what do we do with that information to make a difference for their learning, and what do they need to do next? The biggest thing that I think we do bring, though, is we actually think about what is the really practical stuff that makes a difference for kids, and how do we actually infuse that right the way across the system. So the Learner First model really is it's quite a radically different model than what people are used to. Often people think about a model of learning or a model of change that actually provides an answer. We don't actually give you a direct answer. We get you to really think about what works for you and your context and your situation. It's really about looking at your learners and what do they need, understanding who they are, what are their needs and requirements, and we really bring in the parent perception, and we bring in teacher perception, and we bring in student perception as well. We really get to what's the root of the problem that's stopping our learners get to be successful. So we don't make any assumptions. We actually really try to think about what have you been holding on to and thinking about why these kids aren't being successful. So if you've got some kids that aren't actually aren't reaching the aspirations that you want them to get to, why is that? And we really peel back the reasons why. We don't make any general assumptions as to that. And what we see is that we actually get schools to really dramatically accelerate the progress of all of the students. And when we say all, we mean all. And that means every single child, and we don't let up until we find out that every child is being successful. And then we see results within a year. And we don't accept anything less than that. And what we do is we make sure that the schools have the systems and the processes and the knowledge of how to do that. So when we leave, they actually have a systematic process of inquiring into their own practice so that they can do that repeatedly for the learners who need us the most. So what we do is we have 5 capabilities that we believe that every system needs to make sure they've got to be really successful. So we've used this system in repeated ways, and we look at it at the district level, we look at it at the system level, and we look at it at each school level, and then with all of the learners as well. So let me just run through each of those capabilities. So the first one is really understanding the root problem. So thinking about what is actually working for which children and why, and what's stopping the ones that aren't being successful, and why is that? So we don't just take it on one test, we take it on a whole range of different sort of assessments. So we look at, are they coming to school? Are they engaged in school? If not, why not? What are their standardised tests telling us? But also, what are the teacher perceptions on that? What are the parent perceptions on that? So what is all of the evidence telling us? So we don't just make general assumptions. We really look at what's actually happening for each kid, what are the systems that are happening around that, and we don't make assumptions. I can give you an example of that. So we may be thinking that if a student's not being successful at, say, math, it might be that we would have in the past automatically assumed let's give the teacher some professional development in math, and that will automatically make the difference for the kids. If that had happened in the past, we would have been really successful in our system before. But often there are other things that are happening for that student. There are things in the whole school system that we might need to change to really affect some difference for the kids. So we actually look at it systematically and think about what are the system conditions, what are the conditions in the school, and what actually do we need to do to shift the issues that might be occurring all the way around that student first. Then we look at parents as real partners, and we actually have to truly understand and listen to our parents to say what is it that's really going to make a difference for our kids. They are the ones who know their children the best, and as educators what we need to do is really think about how can we take the knowledge that parents have and then infuse that into the learning experience for the students. So they know what really excites their kids. Let's listen to them as the educators and actually turn that information into learning context. So what can we do to actually change some of the things that we're doing in our school environment to make sure that the students feel like that there's not such a big delineation between home and school, and that we can actually make sure that those experiences that they're having at school actually match who they are as people, and that the parents actually can provide that information for us. We're not asking parents to become teachers. What we're asking is that they can actually provide really valuable information that will help us to provide that context for learning. The third one is really about leadership for accelerated change. So are we actually, as leaders, really being able to influence the system to ensure that we're focusing on acceleration and that we're leading all the way through to change? So we're not just doing what I call the set and forget method, where we actually purchase a program and we leave it in place, but we don't check and make sure it's actually working for each individual learner. So we might decide a program looks good, feels good, tastes good, and the research says it works, but is it working for each child that we have in our school and for every single child in our school? And do we check every 3 or 4 weeks to say, is this working? And if not, what can we do differently for each of the learners that we have? So we're always monitoring, we're always looking at our data, we're always minding our data to say, does this work and does it? And if so, why? And let's expand it. If not, let's not. Let's change, let's be brave enough to change what we're doing to make sure we're getting all of the needs of our students met. The fourth one is a really unshakable belief that every single learner can be successful and they will be successful. And how do we make sure that happens? It's really genuinely connecting with every learner and making sure we understand who they are, what their context is, and making sure that we can actually believe that they will be successful and provide the learning experience for them so that they will. And that if they're not being successful, what are we going to do differently about that? So us as the educators changing our behaviour to make sure those children will be successful. So it's not about the children, it's about us as educators changing what we need to do and taking some responsibility for that in a different way. And the last one I think is a really interesting one because it's about having the school culture and the district culture really reflecting that the learners, they are the ones who own the learning experience too, and that they own that so that when they walk into the school they don't leave their culture at the gate, they can see themselves reflected and that the culture of the school is theirs. And that the expectation is that they will be successful. So I talk about it in the sense that it's not enough just to love our kids, we actually have to expect that they're going to be successful, and they know we expect they're going to be successful. So it's something that's really important to have the love and belonging aspect, but also that really high expectation so that every single student is going to be successful. So when those 5 capabilities are all in sync together, we can see every school being successful, and we can see the district being successful and working together. And when we see lasting change, we actually see that at 3 different levels, and I talk about it as being an iceberg. So at the top level, you can have systems and processes in place, but unless you go underneath that and you actually see the behaviours and practices changing, and then even one step down, you actually see your beliefs, values and assumptions changing as well, you don't get that lasting change. So lots of sort of programs might touch the top level and provide examples and provide you with a pre-organised program. But unless you go through that inquiry process and actually look at your own practices, your own behaviour, you might not get that lasting change. So what we do is we create a change team at the district level, and we create a change team with our schools, and we get them to ask themselves what's actually happening in those 5 capabilities and really reflect on that practice. And in each change team we have parents present and we have students present, so we hear the voices, and we have teachers come to those change team meetings, so they're all talking about how this works together and how do we actually get better at meeting the needs of our learners. So some sort of examples that we've had working in this year in the 6 schools that we've been working with, at each of the different layers of the system, we've had the 3 targets that we've set for 100% success with particular groups of students who we haven't served as well as we could have over decades. And it's not just Federal Way, it's lots and lots of systems have been really struggling to meet the needs of all of our students. We're focusing on really what is it that's going to drive the change across our system to meet the needs of these kids. And that's for every student, because lots of your kids you're meeting the needs of. So what can we do differently to meet the needs of the kids we haven't met the needs of before? So it's accepting you're doing a great job with most, but what do we need to do differently with the rest of the kids that we're not getting the needs met for? Some of the things we've done is like we've been really looking at new bilingual schools and into systems, getting some of the assessments right. How do we make a difference there? and buying some curriculum materials that are relevant to the learners that you have. So making sure those are really in place. So getting some of those sort of policy things sorted out. One of the things we've looked at in our behaviours and practices areas, we're actually not measuring, we don't make the measurable important, we actually make what's important measurable. So we think about what is it that we really think is important for our kids, and we make that's what's measurable. So we think about who is the whole learner and then decide how do we want to know whether they're being successful or not. And then that underlying assumption, do we really believe that every student can be successful? And challenging that belief and asking those hard questions, and what does that look like for you? And some of the conversations we've had have been really, really good. They've been really challenging some of those beliefs, and what does that look like for this learner, for that learner, for you as a teacher, for you as a principal? What does that mean for you? And how are we going to shift some of our behaviours to really make that happen for you? And then, do we believe that parents can actually contribute to learner success? If they can, how can they, and how does that look? Or do we think that it's appropriate for them to be working at a PTA level, or do we think they can really contribute to educational outcomes? So having those conversations is really, really helpful. So why do we use the fireworks model? We actually say that it's really, really important to ignite potential of all of our learners, because we believe that every kid can be successful. There's no doubt about that. And then the fireworks reminds us that there's an element of excitement, urgency, and spectacular results, as you've seen some of the results tonight, that every child can, when they get an opportunity, do some amazing things in this world. And it's education system's responsibility to make sure that happens. As adults, it's our job to make sure that happens. So we have a framework of different tools that help us to do that. We do an evaluative snapshot to actually sort of see where the strengths and gaps are in each system. So with you, we've looked at what the strengths were, what the gaps were, and we've started to work with the district and the schools. We have rubrics that actually sort of describe for a school or for your district as to what the capabilities look like and help give the description of that. Each school creates a change plan alongside the district to sort of say how we're going to really enact the change and how do we prioritise that for each of our teams. We have a protocol for the change teams as to how to have those discussions and ask some really challenging questions. We have surveys that really help us get some information, and they're about relevance, about enjoyment, as well as academic success, because we think that's really important. And then we have a data tracking plan, which we're in the process of doing at the moment, to really gather that assessment information to see, are we being successful or not? But that's kind of the overview of how we work, but the real success is about the students, the parents, the teachers and the schools and your district, because I think they will be able to explain this better than I can. So I'm going to pass it over to them. Thank you. Mary.
Members of the board, my name is Marion Muller. I'm the principal of Sahalee Middle School, and I'd like to share with you a little bit from a principal's perspective and then also from my school's perspective, working with Learner First, and some of the changes that it's helped us implement this year as we're working to close the opportunity gap of our students. Like what was just shared, Learner First is really a process. It's a process of looking at the barriers to our learning and looking at them in a different way. Like many schools in the region, for the last over 10 years, we have been working hard, trying to close that opportunity gap of our students. And 10 years ago, we implemented a lot of little stuff with MSP. We saw initial gains, and all of a sudden we flatlined. And you look at our data for the last 10 years, although we've been working hard, we've tried different programs. We tried an entire after-school program. We tried a summer program. We visited other highly functioning schools and brought back a lot of their learning to our school. It didn't work. And so for 10 years, we've been struggling with this issue of trying to figure out how in the world do we help these students that traditionally are not achieving their full potential. And that's the key to Learner First. Part of the process is we actually started a change team. And we brought in a bunch of everybody we could, invited members of our community in. And right now, the Sahalee Change Team is comprised of 16 different members. Staff, students, community members, administration, anybody that's interested in the school. And we're using both qualitative and quantitative data. In other words, not only the test data, but we are taking survey data. We're taking other sources of data and trying to figure out what are the true barriers to learning, especially unique to our school. And this year we've been doing a better job of listening to our students, listening to our community, listening to our parents. We've done this not only by having survey data out there, but we've actually started boys groups and girls groups where we're asking them the question, why aren't you learning? What can we do differently? What can we do to help you? We've also started off, each month our math teachers meet individually with 2 to 3 students, and they develop individual action plans. And they actually, we get them release time, or they go in the hall and they actually have a sit down one-on-one conversation, and they ask students questions about their interest, who they are as people, what's going to help them learn. And by taking all that data, both quantitative and qualitative, we bring it back to the change team and we talk about what's unique to Sahalee, what's going on, what are the barriers of why our students aren't learning, and how do we overcome those barriers. And by doing that, we developed all this rich conversation. And we've developed a plan, a change plan, and now we're in the middle of instigating different parts of that change plan. I'd just like to share you 3 examples of why it's different. Like one example, we've always had an after-school study club, like many schools, and we've put a lot of resources into that. And, it's one of those things you go out, you see in other schools, and you get the data back, and obviously it really works. Bring it to Sahalee, we've had it for 10 years, and we haven't seen the results that we've seen at other schools. And so we asked students questions, and one of the goals, there are 2 district goals that we are working with in particular. Goal number 1 is that we want all our students prepared going into 9th grade to graduate. We want them to have the right math level, we want them to be on track so they could graduate. And our goal number 2 is that we want them to see the relevance of math. And so we're asking our students, we have this study club, what else do you need? What else can we help? And one thing that came out of the survey is that they really want, we weren't doing as good a job as we could to help our students see the relevance of math. And so one thing that we put in place was we have not only our traditional study club, after school club, but now we put into this new activity where it's an after school club specifically geared to math. So students could pick whatever club they go to. And this club is fun. The kids get to, like just yesterday, they were taking trains and they were smashing the trains together and figuring out the velocity of these trains and all the mathematics. The week before, they made spud guns and they were out there shooting the spud guns around and figuring out how far they went. And I will let you know, this is why I became an administrator. Because I had one of my students, and this is a student, you look at his record and his history, absent all the time, every indicator, underachieving. He actually walked up to me, he said, Mr. Miller, I don't want anybody to know this, but I think math is cool. And that is, as a former math teacher, if I could have my students tell me that, then I know I'm being successful. And so it's the small victories one by one. It was changing our approach and looking at the real issue. I'll give you another example. We had a student, and this came out of our individual action plans. So we had a teacher that was just banging their head against the wall because we had this student that would never do homework. And so the question is why? I mean, are you choosing not to do it? What's the real issue? And then through the conversations, what came out is the student goes home and is truly just being the mother. There are 4 other kids at home, and the student goes home and takes care of the kids. Once they get home, she doesn't have the time or the ability or the resources to do the homework she needs to do. And so this math teacher that was meeting with her worked out a plan where she would be able to work in her room. And then they called up the parent and they arranged it and they set that up. And over the last several months since that has happened, the students' test scores have just skyrocketed. So it's looking at all those individual plans, all that individual data, and figuring out what works best for us, what is unique to Sahalee. And that's the true goal of Learner First. And so thinking of the real solutions behind the problems, looking at the real data and having the change teams help us with that and identifying and overcoming those barriers, we've seen some amazing results. This year, you can look at some of our students that have never achieved. They're showing over a year of growth. Through our test results and our survey results, we see students finding the relevance in math for the first time. When we survey our community and our teachers, they say they see students improving in ways that they've not seen before. And that is the reason that we're doing the work, and that's the underlying part of Learner First. And the key to Learner First is listening to our students, because they really know what they need, and getting all that data. But instead of just listening to me, because I'm a principal and I'm up here, and one of the things I'm supposed to do is tell you how great my school is. Let's listen to the students. I'm going to show you a video clip in a second, and this video clip has not only students from my school, but students across the district that are working with Learner First. It also features one of my teachers, Kelsey Alec, who's in the audience, who will also be later talking to you about transitions at Sahalee, which is another thing that came out of Learner First that we wanted to improve. But I want to show you a little bit of this story. Several of these students on this video clip, they have discipline histories as long as your arm. They have attendance, they've been BECA'd, they've never been achieving. Now you're going to hear from them what it's really about. And they're going to tell you that for the first time they're seeing the relevance in math. They like math. They're seeing the relevance in learning, and they're having success. And that is the key of why we became educators and why we are here in this district. So I want to make a key point, because somebody asked, well, great, so it's working really well at Sahalee to do all this. Why don't we just take it and spread it, everything that you're doing unique at Sahalee and just put it in every school? It doesn't work. It's not the programs, it's the way of looking at it. Learner First is a systematic way of looking and identifying those problems and figuring out the solutions that are unique to that particular school, that particular community. It's the same thing we ask our teachers to do in the classroom. We want our teachers to go in, we want them to learn their students and differentiate the different solutions. It's the same approach here. Figure out what's unique barriers to learning at our particular schools and the unique solutions. But let's hear from our students.
Can I ask you a quick question? I understand you're doing it at the school level. I assume you also do it at the individual child level. Can you just give us a 30-second of how that translates?
So I shared with you, like, each of our math teachers are actually meeting with students that are traditionally underachieving students. And they actually meet with them on a monthly basis. And they have, monthly meetings with them. And this is scheduled in the day, so it's outside that. And they're collecting data. And through that data, they're actually writing what is individual action plans, how to support that individual student. So, and then at the same time, we have boys and girls groups, which we've actually formed, that is unique to, again, students that are traditionally underachieving, and we brought them together, and they're actually talking about why in these groups. Let me show you an example, because this might help you. One of the biggest learning for our 8th grade teachers is we actually had an 8th grade boys group, and they were talking about why sometimes they're not interested in their class. And so they themselves came up with this great exercise called Crossing the Line, where they had all they went and they got my approval. They asked all their teachers to come in. So we brought all the 8th grade teachers together and all the 8th grade boy math students together. And they would ask their teachers questions. Cross the line if you've never been successful or you weren't successful in math. And what was really cool is, like several of the students said, cross the line said I wasn't successful in math when I was in middle school. And what amazed the kids, several of the teachers actually crossed the line too. And you should have seen them look at it. They looked at their teachers, and that new link to the teachers, understanding where the teachers were coming from, and the teachers gained a better understanding of where the students came from. And ever since that, we see new relationships forming and deeper understanding of how to reach students. So it's about advocacy, because at the same time, we're also teaching the students to advocate for themselves, to say what they need on that individual level. And so that is how we are getting there, both individual and at a school and then on the district level.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, let's see this video, because this will also help a little bit explain what the students see for themselves.
What do you feel is different about math this year?
That I used to learn about times and minus, but now I learn about times, divide, and partition.
What's the most important thing that you want people to know about you?
That I'm going to be the first one to go to college and be a police officer.
It has helped me with better discipline for my classes, because like before in my classes, like some classes, I like don't really focus that well. I just couldn't. But now since I'm in a group, it has helped me being a better leader and helped me out with my ownership and owning up to my actions.
What teachers need to learn about students is that some of them don't learn the same way as the other kids. That when some kids are physical learners, environmental learners, and thinking learners. So sometimes they just have to do it themselves to know exactly what they're doing, or they have to ask questions a lot.
Well, a few of our goals are eliminating Fs and beginnings, which is like the same thing as an F, and eliminating office referrals, and eliminating bad behavior in general. I think we're getting pretty far with that. We've almost eliminated Fs a lot. Because most of those were failing when we started out here, but we've gotten a lot better.
What's different from being in this group this year than last year is that I feel like we're solving more problems in our school, and there's more, kids are more better in thinking about their decision to go into high school and stuff. It's like more stronger than last year, because it was like I didn't care last year, but then like this year everybody's like caring and trying to be on their best.
What's different for me is that this group has helped me in math, because I usually don't pay attention in a lot of my classes, but now that I have some partners in the group, they told me to stay on task in some classes, and I'm starting to pay attention and just trying to get my work done.
The Learner First program is a coaching program that comes into schools, and they have come into Sahalee and worked with our site leadership team and developed what we now call our change team. And what they've helped us do is collect data around where our school is successful and where we can really grow as a whole community. And they've helped us set goals around how we can increase and reach different levels with our students. And our 4 goals that we've really started to focus on this year are, the first one is creating a STEM vision for our school. And STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're moving towards that vision. The second one is getting all of our students to graduate. So we want 100% graduation rate from all of our students. The third one is finding relevancy in math with all of our students, specifically with our boys. We have found that they are the hardest to reach, and so we're really pushing to work with them. And then the fourth one is equity and excellence for all. And really, as a whole community coming together and finding what is the most equitable and best for all of our students and all of our stakeholders.
Change leaders are teachers or any individuals in the school who are investing themselves in making our school a better place.
So my job in our change team with Learners First is to be a teacher and to represent our elective voice. So I'm the elective department head, so I work with our music department and our PE department and our language department. And to work with all of our teachers and our community members and our students to really look at all the different aspects of our data. Because we can take the data and say, oh, well, these students say that they're not learning math, but we need to go a little bit deeper. Is it about the students? How can we reach the students from a different way? I might not see them in their math class, but I can tie math into my music classroom, and I can help reach those students who maybe aren't finding their passion sitting in math class, find their passion in math through music. Or I can help the rest of my teachers build relationships with those students and find what their passion is so that we can make them more successful in the end.
When you have large classes and you have tons of students who have different needs and different places that they're coming from, it's not only difficult to reach them by their interests, but most importantly, it's really reaching students where they are. And everyday middle school students come in with different needs about having, issues at home or issues with friends, and math may not be their biggest priority that day. And so my biggest job every day is to engage with each student and to welcome them and to make math a place where they're wanting to be and where they can take away some information that makes them feel more powerful, that makes them feel more capable, and makes them more successful for the future.
I have the opportunity to work as the leadership teacher, so I get to hear from my students how their education is being impacted through our change team. And the one thing that I hear from them is this inspiration of motivation, that they finally are given a chance to really be empowered by what they want to learn.
So Learner First has brought an incredible piece to our math program called an individual action plan, and we've targeted students who are high-risk students, young men in mathematics especially, who need that extra support. And each teacher, each math teacher school-wide has chosen a small group of young men to meet with one-on-one and get to know personally.
And they talked to the whole staff about how important this work was for them and how they feel like they are making a difference for themselves. It's inspiring to see them just light up and know that they're in charge of their own actions and their own success.
And so that's a piece that Learner First has brought to us that's just been a huge change for some of those kids who fly under the radar and very often are not connected with to teachers.
We as teachers feel so much passion for our students, and we want to keep working, and sharing that out with each other is not something that we get to do every day, so it's really important to honor those celebrations. And I remember after talking about these increases in scores and talking about this small group of gentlemen who have been speaking at our staff meetings, and one of the parents just looked at us and was like, "It just makes me feel so powerful that we care so much." Seeing them feel like they are in a safe place, that they have someone that they look up to, that I have made an impact in them, that they are somebody that they can trust. That's what I look forward to every day, making those little changes for a kid, for them to feel like they are becoming successful and that they can do it. That's huge for me.
Engaging with students and getting to know them relationally and asking, what do you need and how can we help you become that person, is the start. Yeah, I think that if we try and do things without asking students, it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. We don't know all of their needs, even if we think we do. And I think that it's really powerful for students to process, what do I need and where do I want to go?
So I hope what you got from this is that the difference is that we are taking a learning approach. Learner First is helping us become better learners and hearing from our own students about what they actually need. Next, let's hear about another school that is implementing the same thing. And you're going to hear, again, there's threads that are very similar between the schools, but each of the solutions we're coming up with is uniquely different, reflecting our student populations and where we're at. So I'd like to introduce Michael Swartz from Wildwood.
Thanks, Marin. I'm Michael Swartz, proud principal at Wildwood Elementary, and this is Joanna Douglas, who's trying to hide in the back. The person you really want to hear from is her, and she's going to talk about one of her students, but I wanted to just tell you a little bit about our journey and our journey with Learner First. And you've heard a bunch, so I don't want to repeat that, but I want to talk about the powerful moments that our change team has had, the conversations that we want all of our teachers to be able to have about the 5 key capabilities, about the district targets, and about individual students. And some of the most powerful points have come when we've taken the district targets, identified the focal students, and teachers, all of the teachers at Wildwood have those pictures of those focal students that are in those district targets. And everything that we do is filtered through those focal students, is filtered through those district targets, is filtered through those key capabilities. All of that, that's with all of that in mind. So an example of that is we just had student-led conferences, and we were looking at parents as real partners. And we were looking at how often at conferences we sort of cycle and do the same thing that we always do at conferences. We talk at parents We don't take the time to listen to what they really have to say, to really treat them as the experts on their students. And we decided we wanted to change that. We wanted to really have those conferences be that time where we're going to learn from the parents, where we're going to have those parents as real partners, where we're going to have them have the opportunity to tell us their hopes and dreams for their kids, to tell us how we can do better for their individual students. And President Gregory, you asked about individual students, and that's really been the key about what we've been trying to do, is get down to knowing those individual students, what they need, what they're about, how we can support them, how we can help them achieve. So, you know, that's been one of that's been the keys to our work. Looking at the targets and looking at our focus students, we've seen, you know, Maren talked about data and seeing some jumps in data, and we've seen some really good jumps in data. And an example is Joanna has 6 focal boys in her 3rd grade classroom. They're math students, focus is on math for them. By March, 5 of those 6 boys were meeting the March standard. The one who wasn't had jumped up 150 points. And we believe that when we get data for him coming up here pretty quick, that he'll be meeting. And that all 6 of those boys will be meeting standard. And that's, you know, that's what we're trying to do for each student in every classroom at every grade level at Wildwood. So I want to let Joanna talk a little bit, because the boy that you saw at the beginning of the video, little Christian, is her student. He's one of her focal students, and we kind of call him the movie star at Wildwood, because this video has been shown in a couple of other places. So he's the movie star of Wildwood. But we're pretty proud of him because of the work that he's doing and because of the work Joanna's doing with him. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit.
Thanks for having me today. So a little more background on my 6 boys. All of these 6 students have never met standard in math before in their K through 2 experience. Also, 5 of my boys are English language learners. 4 things has been a result of my work with Learner First. First off, my students are advocates for their learning. They're able to let me know if they need to work on something a little more, if they feel like they've got it. Second, there's a love of math. My goal every day is to make sure that my kids don't even realize that math is over, because they'll just be like, oh man, it's over. That's when I know I've done a really good lesson and met the needs of my boys. The second is on our surveys, all my boys identify as mathematicians now, which is really exciting because we know that math can transfer into their future careers. And again, like Michael said, all of my 5 of my 6 students are meeting standard now in math for the first time in their schooling career. And the 6th one, we know he's going to meet it by the end of the year. You know, he's grown 150 points, which is over a grade level already in math. He was pumped when he finished the math MSP because he knew he passed it. And so it's just really exciting to see the growth in these kids. Like Michael said, the first student was mine, Christian. And Christian, what I love about Christian is that, number one, he's super funny, which you wouldn't have known it unless you really got to know him because he's really quick with it. For example, today in math, we started a new game on geometry, and I have my kids rate it on how well they liked it. And I asked them to rate it 1 through 5, and really quickly, he took off all his shoes in his hands and said, it's a 20, and like lifted up his feet in the air. But then his shoes were back on before the other kids could notice. The other thing is he's a role model. He is a big brother of 2 little brothers and a sister, and he loves to help them out. He reads to them every night, and you can really see that when he works with the other kids in our class, that he really has that nurturing attribute. He's also a kid that looks at the glass half full. You know, if he doesn't get something the first time, he's like, it's okay, I'll get it next time. But most importantly, what's amazing about Christian is his family. I have had the pleasure of getting to know his family this year, and his family are immigrants to the United States. And so something that his family really pushes to him and myself is that they really want Christian to have this stability. You know, growing up, where Christian has grown up, where they are living paycheck to paycheck, where they're always worrying about where are we going to live this month, the food we're putting on the table, and they don't want their son to live like that or their kids to live like that. So they're really pushing hard with me to make sure that I push him hard, because they want him to have a stable life someday to support himself, his family, and then his brothers and sisters. Christian, although he's grown those other 4 things, there's other things he's done as well. First off, he's more confident in himself. At the beginning of the year, it was really hard to even get him to speak. And now he's more willing to participate, and he's extremely verbal. Also, it's really neat because he has the goal of wanting to become a police officer someday. So you may have seen in the video that he said he's the first one to go to college. So he will be the first person in his family to go to college someday. And it's neat that he has that goal even as a third grader, because we know when we make goals, you're more likely to meet that goal. So thank you so much for letting me share about my class. You're welcome to come visit anytime. And thank you so much for our work with Learner First.
So one thing that I want to add quickly is that through our work with Learner First, one of the places that we're trying to get is that all of us at Wildwood know all of our students, as well as Joanna has shown you that she knows Christian. And we think that that's really going to be the key to us helping them with what they need to achieve and be successful. So that's where we're starting, that's what we're doing. I would hope that you would be able to come visit Wildwood. We'd be able to talk to you about students. We'd know their names. We'd be able to tell you where they are, not just what their data says, reading and math, but who they are as kids and where they are as learners. So that's where we're going with the Learner First work, and we're really proud to be continuing with it.
So Joanna, I just want to take a second, and I actually got the privilege of going to Wildwood and seeing your classroom in a 45-minute snippet. And the work that you do and the care that you take with those students was definitely seen in that 45-minute, and how they were all completely engaged in the math game that you did in that time. And I just want to thank you for what you give to all your students. It's pretty amazing.
I'm the lucky one that I get to work with them. They make me a better person. Thank you.
Can the question, I understand. I was at Wildwood and you were having about to have a change team meeting, and you explained it to me, how you diagnose each child.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also saw that at Sahali. I just wanted to verify, because I know at the middle school you've got kids in a variety of classes, but those teachers come together to do the diagnosis, right? Great, thank you.
I just wanted to add that we have some other Learner First school principals raised to top. Investment Fund 1 principals here with us tonight. Chad Luttrell's here, I believe. Rudy Baca is here, I believe. And Chris Baker. Is Chris here? Okay, so the 6 schools that we have in Investment Fund 1, though, are Wildwood, Sunnycrest, Truman, Federal High School, Sahali, and Totem. And so I just want to thank Joanne McKicken, the principals, Joanne, all the presenters tonight. You've heard, I saw the video. This is the real work. It's about every child. It's about knowing them. It's about knowing their name, their strength, their need. It's about engaging them in their learning, exciting them in learning. And this is a shift in attitude. It's a shift in belief. It's a shift in understanding that what we've done to become a 70% district is no longer good enough. So I'm proud of you guys. Thank you for the work. It was one of the most inspiring presentations I've ever seen in the years that I've been in this business. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, let's go to public comments. And for those of you who are interested in commenting, you need to fill out a blue sheet, which is on the back table. I have one, which is Sharon Norton. Oh, I have a whole bunch. We'll start with Sharon Norton. And this topic is Sahali Middle School update. We have a bunch of Sharon Nortons.
There's 3 of us. Okay. Thank you, President, distinguished directors, and Superintendent New. I'm Sharon Norton. I'm the Dean of Students at Sahali Middle School. With me is Kelsey Allig, our star from the video. And she'll also be an administrative intern in the district next year. And one of our students, Jamie Moore, who's going to speak to us a little bit about her experience at Sahali, very briefly. This evening, we're excited to share with you some of the progress that we've made at Sahali this year from a different perspective. So a little background, we started the year with our incoming 6th grade class at about 146 students. Today, we have an additional 50 students already registered over from last year, so we're anticipating at a minimum 200 student enrollment for our 6th grade class next year, which is really exciting. So the question is why, and you've heard a lot about it, Learner First, and a lot of targeted focus areas. And one of our targeted areas is school transition for our students, helping them be successful from elementary to middle school and middle school on to high school. And we believe that that is the primary reason why we have an increased enrollment, because in outgrowth of that comes a natural building of partnerships among teachers between schools, administrators, and our family and community as well. At Sahalee, we believe the whole child must be supported to improve their learning. That means socially, academically, emotionally. So the data, variety of data that you heard about, really speaks to those areas of the whole child. It's not all about test scores, and I think that's resonating loud and clear. So we're going to share 3 of the things we've done specific with transitions for you this evening, so you have a little better picture of what's happening with our feeder schools.
So one of the major steps that we took this year in our transition program, usually we have an orientation day in August where all the 5th graders come in that are going to be our new 6th graders. But this year we approached it with a new lens, and we looked at what our music department has normally done, is gone down and played for all the elementary schools. But with our Ignite mentoring program, we decided to take our Ignite mentors down to the 5th graders, and we did about 4 different lessons with those 5th graders, really trying to smooth out that transition and take away that fear that can often be there for elementary schools going into a middle school. So we really wanted to focus on building those relationships with 5th graders early on so that they knew what was expected when they're coming to be a Skyhawk next year.
And then adding to that, so that was sort of our fall, early winter, and during the fall we were starting to do the parent surveys that we've heard about. And what came out loud and clear to us was that parents wanted to have relationships and they want to know more about the schools. So we invited parents to Sahalee. We went and visited our feeder elementaries and had parent meetings with the kids. And then we had elementary schools students visit Sahalee for our Dream Day in February, and 8th graders then visited high school. Is that our timer?
Mm-hmm.
It's staring
Go
at
ahead.
us. Are we
Go
good?
ahead.
Is it we're gonna have an alarm?
No.
Anything like that? Okay. Yeah, and the parent part was really important because parents have a lot of questions, especially that elementary to middle school piece. And this gave the opportunity for parents to come into our school, talk with us, and then for us to go into the elementaries and meet with them as well. And then we just wanted to share one piece that kind of connects to the math piece, and that's why we brought Jamie along to speak with us. So you want to talk about your intercession experience?
Yes. My name is Jamie Moore. I'm a 6th grade student at Sahalee Middle School. And over spring break, I attended a small session about math, a math intercession. And that was the small clips we saw in the video. And I really enjoyed this because you got to learn things that you normally wouldn't learn in a regular public school, but you learned them in such a fun and engaging way that a lot of students enjoyed it, and I even enjoyed it. And I realized how math was fun and how math links to everyday life. And I thought it was a really cool experience, and I think that if this was taught in regular public schools, that kids would graduate more, do better in school, and probably have a better future. Some of the things we did in the intercession, where we learned about Pascal's triangle and all of the patterns in it, and it was taught in a way that kids could understand it. We also learned about patterns like in the Tower of Hanoi from Planet of the Apes, and how those patterns about that. And we also shot a potato gun into the air, and we figured out the distance, the time, and the speed. And I thought that was just a great experience, and I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
All right, that's it. Thank you for letting us share, and we will come back again with an update later.
Thank you very much. Great work. Okay, Neil Goldingay? There's someone? Oh.
Good evening. My name is excuse me, Neil Goldengay. I'm a parent of 3 kids. That 2 have recently graduated from TJ, and my youngest is still at TJ. I'm also a 10-year employee of the Federal Way School District working at Nutrition Services. I've come here tonight to just chat a little bit about the future of Federal Way. We've had, I guess what I want to ask is a couple of questions for the board. Right now there's 4 of you. We're missing 1. When do you expect to get the 5th seat filled? Do you have any idea?
Yes, the application is on the website and the calendar, and we will complete it by June 24th.
June 24th. And then when does the process start to select a new superintendent?
We will be announcing that shortly.
Announcing what?
On this agenda.
The process?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I really want to emphasize how important it is to all 5 of you, and there is a 5th one, that it's a pretty pivotal moment in the future for Federal Way School District, and it's very important that you engage your constituents in the selection process, and that they know when they can come here and give you feedback on that decision. It's really something that I think it's time to make a real concerted effort to engage the public and make sure that that decision includes the public in bringing a superintendent into the next 3 or 4 or 5 years from now.
I might just comment that we will announce a process, and that is one of our intentions. Exactly what you're saying is to ensure that the public is participating in this process. There's some other things that you're going to be seeing in the next few months where we want to engage the public even further.
Okay. How far out is I know Mr. New, I'm not sure when Mr. New's final day is, but
we're going to announce that shortly.
Will there be a lag time between our new superintendent and?
We'll explain that when we report out our executive session.
I got to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 30 seconds. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Salil Lewis. I have one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for having me here, the Federal Way School Board. My name is Soleil Lewis. I am a 9th grader at Federal Way High School. I have an interest in other cultures and learning languages since I've been in the 6th grade. I have been continuing to learn these languages on my own and understand that knowing other languages and understanding different cultures can help bridge the gap between a person from another country and also in America and build a stronger relationships. Since then, I expressed this interest to various educators. Throughout my academic journey, I was selected by 2 educators to participate in 2 programs. The People to People Ambassador Program, which was created by the late President Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was to give students an opportunity to represent their country, state, and district as ambassadors. I will be traveling to these areas on the itinerary sheet, which can be passed around. I will also be traveling to different villages to be helping in education-wise and helping with students with lesser means, and also as a mission trip on the side also. Also, the second program I was nominated for was the National Youth Leadership Forum, which allows for students to experience going outside of their communities to different schools and for their careers, and like in the future going to medical schools, law schools, experience STEM and engineering. I am truly committed to my education and want to continue to represent this district in a positive light. I am asking the school board to support me financially on this endeavor. I have raised half of the required amount for both of these trips, as you can see on the itinerary sheet. Unfortunately, my family experienced a house fire on January 4th, 2014, causing us to leave my home for 8 weeks, which caused a delay in funding. Despite these circumstances, I continued to strive for excellence by participating in the PAGE program in Olympia. I was still encouraged by my parents and teachers to push through these trials and tribulations during that time in Olympia. I completed the PAGE program and was awarded an editorial piece in the Federal Way Mirrors newspaper, and if you are able to help in any way or sort, I would love for the Federal Way School Board to support in any way possible. And that is all.
Thank you. You're at Federal Way High School?
Yeah.
So, as you know, this meeting is televised. If people wanted to support you, they could send their support to Federal Way High School. Would that work?
It would be best recommended, because there are two programs, that it would be sent to the People to People Ambassador program, like if a check was made, for example, and the National Youth Leadership Forum, because it's not a part of Federal Way High School. Like, they wouldn't, be a part of it.
Okay.
Could maybe people, if they were interested in finding out a little bit more, connecting with you, maybe they could do that through Federal Way High School, so that they could get specific information. So if they were thinking about donating money, they could talk to you directly, kind of about where that might go, or if other folks maybe have some ideas of people that might be interested in helping you pursue your goals. Would that be the best place for folks to get a hold of you? Would maybe be through the office at the high school?
That's one of the best ways.
Okay.
And they also can contact me on my fundraising website,
Okay.
on GoFundMe, which is on my paper that I've given to you so far.
Okay, so you do have a GoFundMe site?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Dennis Stiles. Where's your son?
Gotta get that homework done. Thank you for accepting my comment. Every time I come here, I almost forget like where I'm at, because like the conversation that we have is like totally different. So it's just like, it's inspiration, see kids come up here and they're doing their thing. So hopefully some of the things that was at Sahali, some of the things that they were doing, we can support them in what they're doing. I think one of the other meetings that I went to, they had a similar program where they were teaching the kids like manners and different things. I forgot the name of it, but there was the principal at Totem, basically had something similar where they went and engaged. So what I guess the commonality of all of that is engaging the students and the parents from each system, whatever you called it. I was like, are we guinea pigs? Because it was like statistics. It's like, man, I mean, there's faces that actually go to those statistics, so to hear teachers to say that they engage in their students and they're learning about their family and these different things, they're definitely needed.
my teacher, my son had a teacher at Wildwood that was similar to the teacher that was up here that was able to get him to read, in a short period of time, like just major progress. But unfortunately, he wasn't going to have that teacher the next year. And the way that she taught, there was supposed to be a way that she, the way that she did it. And I said, well, how do we get the rest of the teachers to implement this? And she was like, well, 2 years later. I'm like, 2 years? He's not going to be in elementary. So hopefully we can take what they're doing and actually make a push to implement it in all the schools, family liaisons or whatever the case, and get into the families and see what's going on, because it seems like it's working. Talking to and finding the need of what our kids actually need in the schools, and to see the kids come out here and articulate what the problems are, because they really have solutions. Literally, the parents have solutions. We have conversations about it, but it's implementing that. I feel like there is a disconnect with the board and the parents and all of this stuff, as far as being able to voice your opinion, being able to get like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever. You might have more questions. You might have, one of the citizens told me that before they had like an hour, session where you talk to the board and you figure things out and hash things out, and we're able to actually hear the comments and feel the people that you're affecting. If you're running a business, how do you not know your customers? And it's really enlightening and exciting to say, oh yeah, but man, I'm 38 years old. We had this problem back then, getting in and contacting people and getting involved. So it sounds good, but we got to continue it, and we got to have some type of connection to where, like the gentleman said right there, I think a lot of people feel like that as far as the process.
I need to thank
Oh, okay.
you. We got a red light.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But thank you so much for your comments. Okay. Uh-oh. Matt Weinberger.
President Gregory, board members. Well, I'm here today because I'm unhappy about something. That's probably not something that's new here. Public forum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I am a parent of 4 children. One is still in the Federal Way School District. The rest have passed through. 6 weeks ago, my daughter was transferred over to, or I transferred her over to Truman High School. I was pretty nervous about this. I didn't know about that school. I toured it. I got to visit the principal, some of the teachers. I was pleased. It's a very impressive building. A very nice program, too, from what I could see. Shortly thereafter, I found out that the staff there was going to be reduced significantly. There's 10 there now. It's going to be reduced to 2.7. How do you have 120 kids in a school with 2.7 teachers? Now, I was left to my own devices in trying to decide how this could work out. Did a lot of reading, research. I was referred to a website, something called Life Prep Flex. Thought it was a goofy name. So I thought, I'll read about what this is. The website is woefully inadequate. There's a flyer on there that has some abstract ideas of what the program is about. No real solid explanations. So I started doing homework about what is a blended learning program. I've never heard of this. I think it's been around a couple of years. And if you look up what the success rate has been with that, it's a mixed bag. There's a lot of people who say it's a travesty. There's others who say it seems to work. Well, knowing that this was coming up at this school next year, I became disturbed that I really had heard nothing about it. I found 3 articles in the Mirror, one pro, another con, and another mixed one. I wrote up a list of 20 questions. I forwarded them to Mr. Kulas, and he acknowledged that he received them and said that they would be working on answers to the questions. 2 weeks later I've heard nothing. So I told Mr. Kulas I'd hold off on going to the next level, which would be public forum, and see what other people think. Did you receive a letter from me 2 weeks ago?
I can speak that we did receive an email, and I do believe also you received a response from Principal Kolas.
A short response saying we're working on your questions.
So I believe there's been some conversation, because I know
No,
I've
that's
talked with
it.
him. I know I've talked with him since then, so.
Okay.
It might be something if we want to explore it a little further. I don't know how far we can get in a conversation this way, but it is the way that the school is going, and blended learning is not it is a way of, again, providing options and opportunities for numbers of students and meeting the needs of the different needs of students in our district. It's one of the many ways.
So with the questions on the letter, I'm getting the feeling they're not being answered because they cannot be answered fairly. I think they're reasonable questions. I think Mr. New maybe should be the one to answer those, since I think he put the program together.
I think Mr. Blauser has a comment that he'd like to share about some offers to meet.
Well, thank you. I have had a chance to talk to Mr. Kulas about your situation, and what we'd invite you to do is get a hold of me, and you and I, Mr. Kulas, will sit down and talk about it. There's also been a couple of parent meetings that I think were offered.
I was there after those were completed, so
Okay.
my bad there. Well,
Okay.
not my bad. I just wasn't there for them.
It's just another opportunity to share that information. Look forward to having that opportunity to meet with you and talk about those.
He supervises the high schools, the secondary schools, so he would be a good person for you to connect with tonight and set something up.
When
so
is
we
the
can get that
website
resolved.
going to be updated, though, to explain to everybody
We
what
aren't,
the program is?
the board isn't going to be able to answer those questions. That's a conversation you two need to have.
Yes, ma'am.
But
I'm
thank
just
you
using
so
this
much.
as a public forum to say as much.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, superintendent comments.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually think that the words of our speakers, presenters, students that we've seen tonight really reflect the comments that I have. And that through the work that's going on in the district, very proud of the work. And as our work with Learner First would suggest, that we're geared for success. Thank you.
Okay, school board comments. Mr. McAnally?
I can go first. Since our last board meeting, I have visited another school. I visited Adelaide Elementary School the last week in April. And I also had the opportunity to go to Skills Inc. last week. It's a program that takes up to 12 students from 4 different districts, and we're one of those districts. And I'm glad to say this year that we have more students than there are room for. I think there are 18 students that went. And these are students that sometimes would probably struggle finding a job, and so it's a great program, and I was very impressed with what they're doing and the work that we're doing to ensure that we're doing everything we can to support all students. And I want to thank the district for that work that it continues to do, and we're doing it well because we've got, like I said, 18 students for 12 spots. And they did share that last year of the 10, 5 of them were, they all went into summer programs, and 5 of them actually went into permanent jobs at that location. The other 5 are only seniors, so you have to wait until you're 18. So it was almost 100% success rate last year. So it's, I really appreciate the work the district's doing with Skills Inc.
Any other board members?
I just want to thank parents for getting their kids rested and ready for MSP. I know that it's happening right now, and it should be just like any other day, and hopefully kids are kind of approaching it that way. But that I know it causes some family stress and some individual children as well. So it's about doing the best kids can do on that particular day, and striving for that always. We've had some really nice school board recognitions and have some more to do, and have really enjoyed being out in the community and celebrating staff and families and children and volunteers in our community. I also want to give a shout out to Alec Chandler and Shelby Garman from TJ, who just very, very recently came back after winning second place in National DECA, and I know we had a lot of celebrations today, and hopefully they'll join us later on and can tell us about their experience. I also had an opportunity to attend a convening at the Gates Foundation with P3 leadership team from Federal Way School District, where we gathered for the fourth time together with other districts, really looking at our systems and how we're making connections between the world of early learning and K-3. And this last time was really focused on, again, our work around math and aligning math, but also looking how children and how children perform in individual groups really need to be looked at, and that when we look at all other factors, whether it's socioeconomic, whether it's social emotional support, whether it's reading, or whether it's anything else, math is the predicting factor in success, and in success not only in literacy but in life. So the more work we can do at focusing just as much attention and time on math as we do in our world of literacy, we will be doing our students a great service. And then the last thing I just want to say, I had the opportunity to attend the last Key Communicator meeting, which happened last week after our executive board or work study, and had an incredible group of representatives that were families and community members and staff really looking at data from our district and looking at what it means and what families' roles are and what staff roles are and what our role is, and how it is we need to work together both in our practice and our policy, and also the culture we create to make sure that all families and all kids feel welcome and that we provide the opportunity for them to be successful. So I appreciate being in that room and having a chance to talk with families from our district. So thank you.
Just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's been a good meeting, a lot of things going on, and I've had conversations with lots of different people in the community lately. One person recently was talking to me about some of the change going on, and I smirked when he told me that he thought the district was spiraling out of control. And tonight, I look at what's going on here. Yes, there's change going on in our district, but there's so much good going on in Federal Way, and I think tonight is one of those nights that reminds us of that. Yes, Oklahoma City took our Sonics, was referred to earlier, and they took our superintendent. But what I take from that is that we have, on the national level, there's people looking at what's going on here in Federal Way. And I think it speaks to not only that the great leader that Superintendent New has been here and the leadership he is, but it speaks to all the other leaders here in our district. We have an amazing group of executive directors right over here tonight that are leading the charge ahead. It's not just one person that makes this district great. There's so many different people and parts, and the different changes that we've made throughout the years. Here there's momentum building. There's things going on behind the scenes that people in our own community don't necessarily always see. And tonight we get to see the glimpse of that more and more, and we get to tell that story, and it makes me excited. I've been out talking to my constituents, visiting different schools. I stopped by Sherwood Forest, talking with Principal Dessart over there, and it's May, and it's kids are going to school, they're eating their lunch, their recess, they're learning. It's MSP time, and it's the end of the year crunch time, and our schools are moving forward. And you could just as you're talking with her and stopping in some of the classrooms, just saying this is that crunch time of the year where students are finishing up projects and learning. I went and stopped by Sahalee, saw Principal Miller, and just poked my head in there. And we're talking about tonight, that's a school that has been a focus of this district, of just seeing some positive change, and it's happening. We're seeing the enrollment go up. We're seeing the cool stuff going on with STEM. Him and another staff member working on the science fair and some stuff going on there, and it's just, you just sense the excitement in the building, and it's just great to see the aliveness happening right now at Sahalee, and the great leadership, and the teachers and the students are excited about it. And it's that kind of stuff that's contagious, and you love to see it. You know, and I went and stopped over at Silver Lake, and you have Principal White over there, and she's talking about the Dream Day. And you're talking about elementary fifth graders and their whole perception of middle school and high school. And it's hilarious because they did a pre-survey. They showed me the pre-survey they did with some of these students of what they think of and what they care about when they think of middle school and high school. You know, it's, you know, where's the lunchroom and what's PE like, or, you know, or what's the locker, you know, they have lockers or something like that. And they did a before and after, and some of the apprehensions and their perspectives of what middle school and high school look like. And they did this day. They went to Sahalee, they went over to Decatur, and these students came back, and the amazing experience, just the things that they thought were in the way, and the intimidation factor of what the next step looked like for them. You just saw it just crumble, and these kids are now excited. And they were able to make some bonds with, talk about the Ignite members and some of the others, student leaders on it at schools, and they just get some heroes and go, you know what, I can make the next step, and it helps them build that bridge. And already there are students that are committing to go to Sahalee from that experience, and it's just cool to see that transition period, you know, that we're paying attention to. You know, I know Director Blauser's that's been critical for him. You know, Director Black, the same thing. They're talking about how do we help those next steps, and we're doing those kinds of things, and it's exciting. You know, I stopped by to see Pam Tuggle over Lakota, and I couldn't because there was a big sign on her desk because it's testing time. And so, you know, it was like no one is supposed to talk to her anyway. So I said, all right, I'll come back later. But, you know, our principals and our teachers right now, it's that time of the year where they're working every minute of the day. And I just commend them for the amazing work going on. And our students are being benefited by it. You know, there's so many untold stories of those heroes in our classrooms and our administrators and that, and they're the ones doing the work, and they're partnering with the parents, and we're seeing success stories like we talked about tonight with our students, and it just makes me proud of Federal Way Public Schools. We're doing good work here. We're doing good work here. We haven't reached to the extent of our goals yet, but I want the community to hear that and see that more and more and celebrate that with us. And just two other things going on in the community I want to touch on. It's elementary track season. Director Barney came back last time. He talked about that. It's still coming up May 22nd. If you want to go to active.com and support our elementary track program by participating in the 5K, definitely do that. Also, Advancing Leadership is doing a day of organics and gardening this Saturday over at the Truman Community Garden over there. And if you want to go there, Cisco, Gardening with Cisco, he's going to be there. And that's part of this year's Advancing Leadership group, their team project, just to kind of promote that. And there's really a cool community garden surge that's going on in our community. And so they're highlighting that. And if you want to participate with that this Saturday, you can go to their website, advancingleadership.org, or show up to the event itself over at Truman on Saturday. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I'll be very brief since we're running short on time. I wanted to mention a couple things. One was one of the recognition nights I went to, the school board recognition nights, which I think, as Director Wilson said, are amazing. And it's amazing to me to see the power that the staff and students have to create change. And I reflect particularly on some students that were recognized for their work on a Martin Luther King Day that they put on at Todd Beamer. And I happened to have the opportunity to be there. And to think of what, not only the work they did, but the power they felt in carrying on a legacy and a mission that was started years and years ago, which was popular then, but understanding the value that has to our country and to our future was just amazing. And to see the amount of time they put in, not only the students, but the staff, over and above what we consider the school day. And to me, that really talks about the whole child and the role that leadership, whether that's students or teachers or principals, plays in the lives of our students. The final thing I want to say is I did have the opportunity to go to the roadmap update, and was very pleased to be there representing Federal Way School District, because it was certainly a district that was acknowledged for the work that we're doing. And what's going on at Sahalee and Wildwood and other schools, having been an elementary teacher, to me that is the most powerful work. When we can diagnose for the individual child, then we understand how you create change and how kids learn. And to me, that's just so exciting, and I congratulate you all for that work. With that, we better move on. And we're moving on now to the decision from the executive session. I indicated that was on personnel and negotiations, and we have an action item out of the personnel portion.
So, Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve the appointment of Sally McLean as interim superintendent from May 14th, 2014 through June 30th, 2015.
We could second it.
Yeah, is there a second?
We can second it.
We'll second.
We'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Let me explain what's happening. As you know, Superintendent New has made the mistake of deciding to go to Oklahoma. And if you watched their basketball team last night, you would worry. Or the night before.
It is 69-65 Clippers right now.
And, you know, we'll talk at our next meeting about what an honor it's been to have him here at the school district and what has happened during that time. But in looking at the transition and the leadership of this district, one of the things that we know is that when you're hiring superintendents, the critical time to be out looking is in the winter, because by now most people have been hired. And so we looked at that question and thought, well, we could look for someone who's been a superintendent who could come in and be an interim. But then we looked inside and we began to get a lot of contacts from all over the district. And so we have made the decision to offer a contract to assistant superintendent I see, but it's really deputy superintendent Sally McLean to be our interim superintendent between now and the 15th and June 2015. We will then have a national search next winter where we will engage a lot of people in determining who the next permanent superintendent will be. So that's the process that we have determined, and we are excited to have the opportunity to take this vote. So with that, all in favor of the motion to offer a contract to Deputy Superintendent McLean to become Superintendent McLean, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The board want to make any other comments?
I just want to say thank you, and I, like Carol said, never have we, I think, probably had more pings in our emails from people not only really wanting to put that out there, but really worried that we would do anything differently than that. And that I think not only as a board are we 150% behind you as a leader, but I could say that probably 99.999% of the employees in this district have the faith in you and also see you as that leader. And I just remember a long time ago, I was telling you earlier, when you made a phone call to me and asked whether I'd do something I never considered before, and I'm just honored to have you take us up on this and be our interim superintendent.
And let me explain, the contract begins tomorrow. Superintendent New will be with us technically until June 30th. However, will be in the district until May 30th or 31st, however many days there are in May. And then we'll be on vacation, but be accessible to Sally if needed. I think he's going to be trying to figure out what he's got himself into.
And I just want to say, if I could just say real
Sure,
quick.
I'm sorry.
To Sally, really second to none, your attention to excellence and just the track record you have had in serving our district through the years is just commendable. And I speak for myself, but I'm sure the rest of the board, and the fact that there's this complete confidence that you're gonna take this on and do a fantastic job. And so I look forward to seeing you leaving Federal Way Schools better than you found it, just with the stuff that you're going to bring in and how you're going to lead us forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, may I make a couple of comments?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So I am both honored by the trust and confidence Superintendent New and the board have expressed in my leadership abilities, and I'm humbled by the expressed respect and support as I begin this journey as the interim superintendent for Federal Way Public Schools. In the almost 14 years that I've been part of Federal Way Public Schools, many of you know me in a variety of capacities. However, this evening, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a bit more about myself. And this is a personal story, but I think it's reflective of how I've become the leader that I've become, at least part of that journey. As a 9-year-old, my family moved from the suburbs, where there were 44 school-age children living in our cul-de-sac, to the country, where there was no one to interact with except my little brother. My mom, in an effort to help us acclimate to this life change, actively engaged us in 4-H. For those of you not familiar with 4-H, the emblem is a 4-leaf clover, and each leaf represents a human attribute, or H. While not the specific creed, basically these 4 H's include head, heart, hands, and health. As I stand before you this evening as your interim superintendent, effective tomorrow, I promise to continue to use these 4 attributes: my head to think strategically, my heart to lead with passion, my hands to work for the success of every student, and my health to model the need for balance in all of our lives. In closing, I consider that I have found my lucky 4-leaf clover here in Federal Way, and I look forward to your continued support, and thank you for your respect, trust, and confidence in my leadership and for this opportunity. Thank you. So remember that at the end on June 30th, 2015.
Okay, now we're going to budget update, and this will be done by Assistant Superintendent Sally McLean.
Big title. And you'll be pleased to know, given the lateness of the hour, that while originally this evening we had slated to provide the board with the superintendent's recommendation for the general fund operating budget for 2014-15, that process has been delayed until May 27th, so that we have an opportunity to have a work study related to the upcoming 2014-15 budget, which I believe is scheduled for a Thursday, May 22nd.
Correct.
And with that, that includes my budget presentation.
Great. Okay. Oh, right.
Certainly. There was one other item that was added to your agenda this evening in regards to Resolution 2014-06 to accept the educational specifications for rebuilding Federal Way High School. This is part of the D-form process that the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction requires in order to be eligible for school construction assistance funding, otherwise known as state match. Currently, we're on a fairly short timeline to get from our current step, our D4 step, through a D8 approval by June 30th. Tonight, the resolution is called the D5 resolution, and again, it outlines what the state calls educational specifications, but what is really the construct or the construction of the building. It's not about the program that's inside the building, it's about the building footprint that we'll be building. So that's the resolution in front of you this evening.
Okay.
I move to approve the educational specifications for Federal Way High School addition and replacement as prepared by SRG Partnership.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
That's your last official act as assistant/deputy superintendent.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
We're now moving to the policy review. Mr. McAnally?
So, Madam President, I move that. Thank you. Madam President, I move that the board approve that EL4 staff relations is in compliance.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? For those of you in the audience who may not know what we're doing, these are reports that we received at the last board meeting, and we have deemed them in, we are now making a decision as to deem them in compliance for their work for the past year. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Mr. McAnally?
Madam President, I move that the board approve that EL5 staff compensations is in compliance.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, EL 14. Claire.
EL14 student conduct and discipline. We're having a hard time sharing right now. So I move that the board approve that EL14 student conduct and discipline is in compliance.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Ends 3. Mr. Peterson.
I move that the board approve that ends 3 responsibility is in compliance.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I just want to say real quick, the work study that was done, and the materials that we had for some of these other ones, just I thought was great. So just the work that was put in, Wanda Brown Billingsley and that whole evening was just fantastic. And so yeah, it's.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. If there's nothing further to come before the board, we are adjourned. We need to sign the resolution.